afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third and final workshop of the third day of Qatar National Products Week. With us today is Engineer Ahmad Al-Anصari. He is the Senior Project Engineering Advisor to the President's Office of Ashghal. And Mr. Ahmad will be talking to us today about re-engineering of construction supply chains, a proactive approach, and the perspective of Ashghal on this very important and vital topic. The topic covers supply chain management in Qatar, focusing on the local construction industry. It will discuss the changing environment of the supply chain and the increasing demand for higher standards and quality. Welcome, Engineer Ahmad. Thank you for being with us today. The presentation is yours. Thank you.
شكرا عزيز. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good afternoon, everybody. You can see the list of the attendees, most of you Arabs, with exception to one particular gentleman. So I think I hope that you don't mind that I deliver the talk in English. Let me share with you the presentation slide. Can you see it? Aziz?
Yes.
Is the presentation slide on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this presentation I'm going to deliver is from purely the perspective and point of view of the Public Works Authority here in Qatar. As you may know that Ashghal is the largest government entity in delivering infrastructure projects and public buildings. Now, what I mean by infrastructure projects, that covers both the economical infrastructure and social infrastructure. The economical infrastructure covers basically the main highways, expressways, and inner city roads, drainage networks, sewage treatment works, and beside the social infrastructure that covers public buildings of all kinds, whether it's healthcare facilities, education, or worship, and other municipal and public projects such as public parks, for instance, fish markets, fishing farms, and so on. Beside that, we are also heavily involved in managing our own assets, and that covers the drainage network, the network itself, the related treatment plants and pumping stations and the like, as well as we maintain our roads nationwide. Now, in our operations, we use a lot of services, and there are some key materials as well. These are some examples of the key materials and services we use in delivering our projects. As you can see, this list is not very extensive. It's just some examples. We use lots of aggregates, sands, ready-mix concrete, and fill materials, bitumen and asphalts, reinforcement and other steel works such as structural steel. And obviously, we use lots of underground services, materials like the macro tunneling, for instance, the street finishing works. What I mean by that, the street lighting, the safeguard, rail guards, the crash barriers, drainage systems for roads and the like. And of course, for buildings, we use endless thousands of finishing materials. And then I move to the services we procure in our operations. We use service of architects and other consultants. Of course, we use service of general contractors and specialized subcontractors. Now, we also getting into asset and facility management, in which we would be looking for facility management service providers. These are some examples of the procurement methods we currently choose and select in our procurement methods for delivering our projects. The traditional one, design bid build, which heavily or primarily depends on that we develop the full design, then put the tender into the market, gets priced by various bidders, and upon which we get the tender returns. We do the evaluation and assessment, ended with award the job to a particular contractor. Now, a few years ago, we started putting different tenders into the market based on the design and build procurement method, in which we only work out the front engineering design into the market, and with some kind of basic layouts and preliminary design. And it's the role of the contractors to further develop the design into detail afterwards and deliver that as a fully constructed facility. Now, there are obviously pros and cons which each different methods we've been looking at over the past many years, trying to assess what would be the best way to procure the best working methods for delivering our jobs. Now, beside these two examples, we have also tried other, but not quite often, like the turnkey, the APC, for instance, a cost plus and maximum guaranteed price and the like. There are many, many different procurement methods available to the market, but these are the most common ones we are currently adopting in delivering our jobs. Now, when it comes to the supply chain, we are not only talking about supply of material and services, but it's much more broader than that. So we are primarily involved in selection approval of architects and consultants. Beside that, also we evaluate, select and approve contractors, subcontractors and specialized service providers. And of course, various suppliers of various materials and services. And then, as I said, that we are adopting certain strategies and philosophies in material procurement and the way we normally manage that. Now, over the past few years, the ecosystem has changed a lot. The construction environment has evolved quite rapidly due to various reasons. As you may know, that the market is advancing and evolving quite rapidly with the new technologies, with the disruptive technologies being introduced to the construction industry. So we needed to look into the whole thing at a much more bigger, broader picture, rather than just focusing on delivering our jobs without any consideration or concerns given to the surrounding world and the available technologies and methodologies, which has improved and evolved over the past many years. Now, when it comes to value chain positioning, I mean, we are heavily involved now in encouraging the local supply chain to basically invest in better industries to better cater and serve public works projects. As you may know, there has been many initiatives introduced by the government and Qatar Development Bank, for example, to support local industries. And it is one of our primary interests to support the local economies. So we are very much interested in supporting the local SMEs to give them the opportunities to get involved and participate in various supply operations in our projects. Okay. Now, beside that, we are currently working on a transition from being construction project focused to asset management focus as well, because all the assets we have been planning and delivering over the past many years need proper operations and proper maintenance. So for that reason, we are currently developing various opportunities to put into the market for asset and facility management of our own asset, as well as other end users' assets like the Ministry of Public Health, for instance, Qatar University, Ministry of Education, and the like. And it's very important for us that we also build the local human capital. So this is something that we have been not very much focusing on lately. We developed certain studies in which we have identified various problems related to the construction industry, primarily the problem of the workforce. As you may know, watching the news, and over the past many years, Qatar has been a hotspot, being put under the focus by international media. So it's very important for us to give the greater interest to develop our own local human capitals by coming up with various suggestions and solutions to overcome those problems of workforce shortages and the changing behavior of the international labor market. Now, when it comes to the other changing factors into the market, of course, as I said, the construction industry is evolving quite rapidly, in which buildings and infrastructure have become much more complex, and they are of multi-tier nature as well. Okay, and we also need to develop ourselves rather than being very classical in providing some kind of typical projects to the community. We need to upgrade our design work. We need to upgrade the facilities we deliver to the market to comply with the current ongoing technologies available into the market. So our public buildings, they became much more sophisticated, of complex nature, equipped with the latest technologies. So we need to obviously relook into the supply chain to the market to be able to procure the best material and services to support the delivery of our projects. Now, beside that, we are also concerned very much with many existing facilities and assets in which we work on modifying them, upgrading them, and some of them we built extensions to them. And in addition to this, as I said earlier, that we are very much interested in developing operation and maintenance businesses for the local market to come and support us. And on top of all of this, we've given great consideration now to information management application of technology. Currently, we are talking about many tools available into the market, in which we have to use in order to improve our productivity and efficiency of work. I will mention some of those technologies in the next slides. Now, why we need to change? There are many strategic drives considering, as I said, the evolution to the market, the economy, the the changing ecosystem. Those factors are very important for us to consider in our operation. As you may know, recently there has been lots of political changes that this area has been affected with. For instance, when we had to undergo the blockade, we needed to rebuild our strategies in terms of supply chain management. Of course, risk management is a major issue. As I said, the blockade was the biggest risk for us, which we didn't consider in the past. We never thought, neighboring country would impose that blockade or close our borders. So this is one of the key elements and the need for change, that we look into the potential risks that may associate with delivering our projects, especially when it comes to the supply of material and services for our projects. It's very important for us to perform a proper suppliers appraisal. It's very important that we select the right supplier who commit and deliver to excellence. there are many suppliers into the market. It's not the question of submitting documentations for the sake of undergoing assessment process and get approval. No, we have to make sure that the supplier we appraise and approve go through stringent assessment that they will be in a position to commit and deliver regardless of the circumstances. Everybody needs to be prepared. Of course, we need to develop some opportunities to put into the market. As you may know, currently there is the Dahil Initiative, which is called the in-country value. QDB is doing this, Qatar Energy is doing this, and also we will also do this. That would be primarily focusing on supporting local businesses and relying as much as possible on the available services within the Qatar supply chain industry. Now, this point, standardization, I'm going to talk about it in the next slide. Now, as you may know, many of our projects are big, diverse, in which we use many different materials and services. So we try to standardize those materials and services rather than keeping them too open for anybody to approach us. So that would obviously save time and cost for us. It's very important now, considering what's happening globally, that we build clear strategies and cost control and cost management, and obviously time management is of essence as well. As you know, that we have been experiencing lots of delays, lots of waste. So we need to adopt new strategies and be proactive about, the cost and time management in delivering our projects. Information management, as I said, the latest available tools into the market, they are of a great use and great support to deliver construction projects. Currently, you have design tools, you have management tools, you have construction tools that support project teams and improve the performance of project deliveries. As we know that we have the building information modeling, for instance, and lately we have come in use of many disruptive technologies like the artificial intelligence function, for instance, virtual realities, and the other forms of disruptive technologies. Now, the new approach, as I said, standardization is something very important for us. Now, over the past 10 years or 11 years, ever since we started our huge construction program, starting with the expressway program in 2010, there wasn't a clear standard on how to deliver, those projects that been applied across the board to all Ashghal programs. So what I mean by that, the expressway program, we hired a particular international program manager, and a different one was hired for local roads. A third one was hired for delivering public buildings, and the fourth one was hired for delivering the drainage program. And regretfully, what happened, each of those international consultants used their own standards in delivering those projects. So we didn't have a common unified standard that everybody had to follow in delivering our jobs. And even you get some suppliers, for instance, or contractors approved to work for the expressway, but were not approved to work for local roads. So this was something I believe was kept by mistake, but I personally been looking into this for many years, and luckily about 3 or 4 years, I managed to standardize many of our operations and practices within Ashghal. Such standards used across the board, for all Ashghal process and operations, regardless of the nature and type. Now, there are many benefits you can get from them when you standardize the project process. That would obviously ensure and maintain consistency in the project control and delivery. And beside that, when we try to standardize the construction methodologies and the main construction components, that would help all contractors to focus on certain practices rather than keeping it open for different ways and methodologies, which some of them may be expensive to implement or put into practice. Now, the third one, obviously, the standardization and rationalization of materials and product supply. This is something also definitely would bring good cost control and good time management in delivering our jobs. Now, the second approach, we've been looking into the fit for purpose relationships. This is something I think we have been experiencing very lately. We do have, as you may all know, our own construction specifications, construction codes. And beside that, we have some ad hoc specifications for particular material, okay, in which we evaluate and approve certain materials, but not necessarily those. Some of those materials can always work out well and become fit for purpose. What I mean, but for the purpose of the project is intended for. For instance, when it comes to selection of medical equipment, there are certain brands into the market, some big names, and we cannot tolerate on the quality and precision of those certain equipment. We always aim to go for the best. But due to diverse into the market with those big names, okay, as you know, those equipment tend to vary. So what we intend to do, we outline and highlight the goals or the objectives or the scope, and then contractors or suppliers can come along and suggest the best material that fit, the purpose of the application we intend to deliver. So regardless of the brand, regardless of the maybe the minute specifications, now it's very important that at the end of the day, what is delivered achieves the purpose it is intended for, and the overall use of such material or such facility. Now, this works mostly in a design and build projects, but that doesn't mean we do not list down the preferred list of certain vendors, because that helps contractors to obviously get the best. And the main reason why we're doing this, sometimes there are some difficulties. It comes, difficult to find the right material or the right product or the right service into the market, where this market sometimes cannot provide certain services, and the services sometimes sought overseas, imported here. Okay. Now, the third most important one is the spend character, and to be honest, this is a very, very important element that many of the clients here do not pay much attention to. Of course, when it comes to the spend character, this country, as you may know, has got an entire economy, really, relying very much on the generation of revenue from the oil and gas export. So whenever there is so much money, great revenue is generated, we tend to spend more and overspend sometimes. But when the oil prices go down, then we'll face lots of cutting and austerities. So we need to look into those factors and aspects every time we tend to deliver projects. We need to see how we behave about cost management and cost control. As you know, there are certain projects here delivered in this country with open budgets, maybe, but there are at the same time many other projects with controlled budgets. So our attitude and our behavior changes as the economy changes. So the more money we have, the more money we spend, and the less money, the revenues and national income, then obviously the less money we spend. So the question of the affluence directly related to the how much money we've got and budgeted for delivering our projects. And then the point which is also related to this, the options available in the market when it comes to procuring certain material. There's big variance sometimes. The 100 riyal or the 50 riyal, they all deliver the same function, the same specifications. So we need to look into the different options as well. Sometimes, as I said, when we have so much money, we go for a higher option, maybe better quality, which could be something subjective. We can't really judge. But we tend to be moderate about that. We do not go for the most expensive or the least, the cheapest one, we say. We try to, go for a choice or an option that can combine quality and cost reasonably. Now, as I said, we do have Dahil Initiative. This Dahil Initiative was invented and created by Qatar Development Bank back to 2015, 2016. As primarily depends on registering and pre-qualifying local manufacturers, not local suppliers, but it is primarily to do with pre-qualifying local industries to supply material and service for Ashghal projects. Now we intend to revisit the process of registration and pre-qualification. I personally feel that it is overdone. There's certain criteria that we can overlook right now. So we try to shorten the checklist of the requirements needed for local vendors to register and pre-qualify with us. As you may know, now there's always a need for some certain certifications. The facilities need to be design equipped in a certain way. The quality assurance, quality control policies and procedures and systems need to be in place and the like. So we're reevaluating everything to ease things off and relax a little bit on those requisitions and requirements to make it easier for local industry to register and pre-qualify for our jobs. Now, beside that, we need to keep monitoring those suppliers, vendors from the local industry, and support them as much as possible. And not only that, try to provide some ideas to further develop their processes and operations, so they may come up with a new material, new things that would cater for the demand of our projects of material and services. And we need to set some sort of key performance indicators that we have to meet every year in terms of taking local suppliers. So we do perform appraisals and do certain performance measurements for those local suppliers in order to be able to provide the proper support And not only that, if any suppliers, for instance, fail to meet their obligations, obviously we have our own ways and measures to take in such scenario, such case. As I said, the government is very highly interested in developing new business opportunities for the local industries. And as you may know, certain government agencies have developed many business opportunities that they put in the market, and they're going to also put more into the market. We're also going to do the same here. There are many opportunities we can develop and put in the market as investment opportunities for the local investors and industries to invest in, providing that we guarantee minimum business for a number of years in order, to make it attractive. We need to provide certain incentives. Otherwise, if no obligations by buyers like us, then it won't worth the investment. The other thing, as you know, that we require a big number of particular materials, a huge number. For instance, if I mention schools, how many windows, how many doors we buy in building and equipping those schools, for instance, we can also get into possible contract split rather than giving 3 or 4 or 5 schools under one package. We can split that into smaller packages to allow smaller companies to participate in our projects. This may work more expensive for us, but as an obligation to support the local economy and local community, this it's worthwhile, to be honest. Now, these are some of the strategic procurement and cost management aiming for value for money. We are currently working on developing what we call integrated project delivery. This is primarily focusing on teamwork, in which all parties to any contract would be, getting on board with the clearly and expressly defined roles and responsibilities, working collaboratively. We have cited over the many past years a lot of failures due to poor communication, poor cooperation among parties to contract. Now we are working hard in order to partner with various supply chain to the market, rather than working on basis of master and slave. Some people may think that way. It's always good to work together collaboratively as a teamwork with a clear understanding on achieving the common goal and objectives of our projects. This would require a great education and a great effort to change the mindset that we are currently experiencing into the market. But I am not, to be honest, pessimistic about it. I think I have to be optimistic about achieving this. Now, one of the things that we can achieve also good value for money, we can go for design, build, operate, and maintain, in which we give the entire thing to one particular vendor or contractor. This contractor gets a job award based on fully designing the facility, building it, and then operating and maintaining it for 5 or 10 years. Now, this would ensure good quality and would also ensure good operation and maintenance, because those contractors will really care much for the delivering of our job. So they in a way, they need to ensure minimum operation and maintenance afterwards for better cost management and volume for money. Framework call-off agreements. This is something that is quite common into the market. With the practice and exercise of using framework call-off agreements, we can always agree some sort of fixed prices or maximum rates, let me say, over a defined term or period, 3 years or 5 years, for instance, in which suppliers or contractors have to, ensure they do not exceed the schedule of freight they provided Ashghal with. But that doesn't mean we do not consider inflation or the change of the external factors into this, such as escalation. So this is something very important. We need to work fairly with goodwill. Now, those term contract, this is something that we normally use in our mainly operation and maintenance works. For example, house connections. We can sign 3 years contract with certain providers or suppliers who provide us with the required services under certain conditions with fixed rates. Now, economies of scale, this is something that I mentioned earlier when I talked about the potential contract spread. As I said, in a standard public school, for instance, we use something like 400 windows, 300 something doors. Okay, so if you multiply that by the number of schools we build every year, on average 10 to 15, you talk about thousands. So there isn't a single supplier in this market can provide that magnitude of work. So what we do, we can sign kind of framework agreements with 3, 4, 5 different suppliers, for instance, who with fixed rates, obviously, to supply those windows, doors, whatever material we require for our projects. Now, it's very important for us also to ensure better supply chain management is to get all stakeholders engaged as early as possible, and we work together on a collaborative basis. So what I mean by stakeholders, especially external one, the end users, the utilities, civil defense, for instance, Karma, and the like. And I'm going to talk about this in particular on the next slide, because this is something very important for us. Now, the business intelligence is also something very important for us to learn from the past. Okay, it's very important that we maintain a good library and respiratory or data warehouse for our past projects, in which we learn from the mistakes related to anything, and based from those lessons learned, we can always make a better informed decisions for our future projects. We minimize the mistakes that they may encounter with delivering any new projects. As I said, we focusing much on using new technologies available into the market. And the use of BIM, for instance, has facilitated for better performance, better project management, better material quantifying and ordering, recording, data capturing, and frequent reporting, clash detection, and you name it. And that helped a lot in improving also our supply chain management. Now, the last point is a circular procurement. There's a great interest by the government now focusing on sustainability and environmental projects, in which a greater thought and interest given to recycling operations. As you may know, that out of our projects, we do lots of demolishing work. So we are focusing very much on reuse of our construction demolition materials, such as roads, and we have successfully reused 15% of the road milled materials back into our new projects after retreating them. This is the last slide. It's very important to have all the external and internal stakeholders involved in delivering our projects throughout the life cycle or the project phases. Now, as you can see from this slide, any project starts with the planning and design team. They work it. Now, in the past, they used to have the pre-activities, pre-contract stage, which is pre-construction. The planning design team working together on the design work, working out the bill of quantities, for instance, the production information in terms of specifications, for instance, an employer's requirement and the different schedules. But unfortunately, there were very little involvement of personnel and departments, engaged at post stage during construction and post-construction. It's very important to get data from the construction teams and the lessons learned. So those lessons learned, conveyed to people at design stage, or let me say pre-stage, so they consider any mistakes to avoid those mistakes, those repetitive kind of problems in the future work. So what I did here, I put the two teams working together collaboratively throughout the delivery of the project phases. You can see those two arrows. All right, so the activities work both way, forward and backwards as well. So now, beside the internal teams here, all right, what's wrong of seeking a professional expertise, advice, for instance, to support or give advice on any particular design work? All right, what's wrong with seeking advice and support from specialist suppliers and contractors? There are some projects of very unique nature, unique design. The technology advances day by day, and we feel we are not really, up to date with the different industries. So it would be nice every time we work on a hospital, for instance, or whatever facility, to look into the market for any specialized suppliers or contractors for, to seek some advices with no obligations. And I'm sure there are many suppliers who would be happy to do that. Okay, so by being proactive, we can always go for best design and best recommendation for procurement of services and materials that meets the current, let me say, market standards. Now, importantly, you have to get the end user involved throughout all stages. You cannot avoid that. Okay, so he needs to be advised throughout and be involved throughout in order to be able to take over the facility afterwards with minimum problems. Thank you very much. This is the last slide, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Engineer Ahmed Al-Ansari, for the insight into the level of work and sophistication that goes behind delivering all the projects that you're working on. We actually have a first question. It's from Munira Al-Muhannadi. And Munira's question is, what about the standards for green buildings? Are there recommended global standards and terms that are implemented in the state of Qatar projects?
Yes, absolutely. Now, we deliver all our projects based on the latest guidelines and standards provided by the green house requirements. It's very important for us. Now, the design work and the engagement of GSAS requirements, certification, GSAS certifications for some of the buildings are considered in our design work, though this might be a bit of a cost element, to be honest, that needs to be added on top of the overall total cost of delivering our projects. Yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Azhar Iqbal is saying, thank you for your hard work to make it easier to work as in an integrated manner. If we have any more questions to Engineer Al-Ansari, please type them in the Q&A tab that you will see in the bottom of the screen, and we will be able to answer them immediately. Meanwhile, I have a question related to the National Product Week. In your opinion, the approach that you told us about and all the, let's say, future plans and changes and this re-engineering, how does that all contribute to enabling Qatari construction companies to become more competitive, let's say, regionally or globally?
Thank you very much. I'm not a business expert, to be honest. I'm more into construction industry, but I think I can definitely advise on that by stating local manufacturers and suppliers have to sometimes obviously ally with certain technology and know-how providers worldwide. I mean, there's no harm of JVing, for instance, with some international expertise or use the service of overseas suppliers or manufacturers. And it's very important that for local manufacturers to establish here, to make sure that they select the right technology and know-how partner who can assist and help in structuring the business in the right way, and also build the facilities to the latest state of the art that's available to the international market to ensure the quality of the product. This is something very important. Now, beside that, I have a bit of concern with the commitment provided by many government entities here. Now, as per the local laws, there isn't any obligation on the shoulder of many government clients to commit to give and guarantee minimum business to local manufacturers. Everything is down to open tendering, and the lowest technically accepted is awarded the job. Now, with Dahil Initiative, I think this has changed now. I would definitely, support the dissemination and spreading of, Dahil Initiative to cover not only Qatar Energy or Ashghal, but to apply it nationwide to all, public sector, as well as, if possible, the semi-government sector. This would rest assure the local investor that they wouldn't be left behind. They wouldn't be supported by the local clients.
True. Thank you. If anyone is interested to, let's say, know more about the topic that you covered, is there any website or source of information about the, let's say, the procurement process or the supply chain process of Ashghal that they can refer to?
Yes, we do have that's covered on our web page. The requirements for registering, of course, there's a big section for anyone to log into Ashghal website. There is a section for company registration, right? There are the checklist, the criteria needed. But I think that's not only, that's not good enough, to be honest, in the sense that in sharing the work we do. Now, we used to do like quarterly or half-yearly workshop meeting with the local industry, local vendors, try to build kind of understanding so they better understand that we'll manage our operations, and we share with them the experiences we are encountering. And procuring different materials and services so they get a chance to improve. Now, unfortunately, that has stopped ever since COVID started, but we are hoping now with normalization of our life now, we're going to bring that back, inshallah, to the operations. So I'm hoping after Ramadan, we can perhaps hold the first post-Ramadan workshop in this sense, in which I'll be happy to talk to everybody and explain what we're trying to do now in order to support our local products and local services, inshallah.
Inshallah. And it seems we don't have any more questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Al-Ansari, for your time and for the excellent insights. I would like to thank you and thank the audience. And we'll see you tomorrow in a new day of Qatar National Products Week.
Thank you very much. There is one comment I'd like to make. Some people asking for a copy of the presentation. I'm gonna send that through to you, Aziz or Sami, and you can share it with all participants.
We can always share it through the email we use for registration.
Sure.
Appreciate it
very much. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Assalamu.